One show in particular that we really haven't talked about on the show, it's called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Yeah, well, we don't ever talk about that.
Not really. We've talked about it like maybe once. Just a little bit, like a smidge.
I don't talk about that much.
Yeah, not really. But we found this weird version of it, and we were like, wow, we should talk about it. So that's what we're going to do today. Here on Anne Ladyem Checkup OVA. It's episode 155.
Oof.
It's a podcast where we have conversations about anime, video games, and manga. Hello, I'm Jared, joined as always by Doc Al, Anne Ladyem.
Hello.
How do you think they would pronounce your name if you were in this dub? This is something we're going to talk about later on, so we'll wrap back around. This will make more sense.
Anne Ladyem.
Anne Ladyem.
Anne Ladyem.
I believe it. And then your last name would also get butchered.
Yeah. McDavid or something weird.
MacDavid.
Ugh. Yeah. I mentioned this recently, but it makes me crazy when people actually say like Mac in my name.
It would make sense if it was spelled that way.
If it was spelled that way, right.
Usually Mix or MCs are Mick.
Mick. Yeah. But I've had people call me Mac Divot before. I'm like, it's Mick Divot. Mick Divot, not Mac. It really annoys me. It annoys me a lot. And I'm sure that they would say Mac. Because they say everything weird in this.
I'm just imagining my name is like Jared. Which that is something someone has definitely been said to me before.
Somebody said Jared?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
It's like, what are you reading?
I
don't know how you would mess up my last name, though.
I'm sure somebody'd find a way.
Climon. Just make it very French.
God.
Just don't even pronounce the S at the end. Yeah, we're talking about the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure OVA series, which is just a very sped through edition of Stardust Crusaders. The caveat of this, of course, is that there was one half of it done in 1993, a year after the manga of Stardust Crusaders had wrapped up, and then they did a second half of it in 2000. So, of course, this is well before the David production version of the series would kick off in 2012. So, nearly 20 years of JoJo media was this, and the very limited release of the Phantom Blood film that they never put out on home video.
Wow. Which
also got turned into a video game. Interestingly enough, in this voice cast, there is a Love Live Sunshine connection.
What?
Of the Phantom Blood movie.
Oh, okay.
The lady who does Arena in the Phantom Blood film is Rico's mom in Sunshine.
Nice.
And also, like, probably more people would know her as, like, Anne from Persona 5.
No, she's Rico's mom.
But she's also Rico's mom. Let's see if there's anything else. This dude who played Jonathan, which I don't think is the same person they got to do for 2012. This film came out in 2007, by the way. So, again, a little bit after the fact, and was done by the same studio who did the OVAs, for clarification's sake. There's a lot of stuff here this dude's done. I'm trying to find something that you would be like, oh, I know this.
Are we talking about Japanese cast?
Japanese cast. They did not dub this in English.
Okay, just checking.
Because it was like, it came out in theaters, and then they never put it out in home video, and it was like a limited like release in theaters, so very much something that like a few people saw, and then that was it. But I think they also adapted like most of it into the Phantom Blood game.
Oh, okay.
So that's probably where most people would have seen the animation and stuff from it. I'm really just stretching for time here.
Well, I was going to say on a tangent, I absolutely pre-ordered the Diamond is Unbreakable live action film on Blu-ray.
Nice.
Because I saw it on my like recommended things on Amazon the other day. Like, yeah, I want that. Click.
I guess this dude also he comes back for Golden Wind.
Oh, does he?
So he gets another JoJo under his belt.
Oh wow,
That's cool.
is he like? Who is he?
He's a character we have not met yet.
Okay, well then we wouldn't know who that is. Then.
Okay, so this dude is Crescendo in Eternal Sonata.
Okay, yeah. That you need to play still.
It's true. I need to have like time to play that.
The struggle is real.
Oh, he's in Final Fantasy 14.
Okay.
The dub that I don't know because I played in English.
Nice.
Oh, he did it. He dubbed one of the characters in the Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift.
Nice. Your favorite film?
Heck yeah. Let's see who this dude who played Dio has been elsewhere. Of course, he's Sakamoto, and haven't you heard of Sakamoto?
Whoa.
You know, that very Dio voice.
Yeah, no kidding.
This dude's someone else, isn't he?
Someone else?
Someone else that we know. Oh yeah, he's a Japanese Akihiko. That's right.
Sonata?
Yes. So Sakamoto, Akihiko, Dio.
One of these things is not like the other.
I mean, they're pretty similar.
Are they? Are they?
Clearly. What do you mean?
You guys, I love Akihiko Sonata. Like, God, he's great. Now I'm just going to be thinking of Akihiko the whole time that we're doing this. You realize that, right?
I mean, isn't that what you're always doing?
Yeah, it's like 90% of my existence is like, Akihiko Sonata would be doing this right now, or like Akihiko did this, or you know what? This was a really cute thing that Akihiko did.
People think you're joking, but
I'm not joking. I will be completely honest with you. I'm not joking. Like, I have art on my wall of Akihiko, and I have like every figurine that's ever existed of him so far, and I have what?
The one last one, the dude who plays Zappelli in this film. He is everyone's favorite shady dude, Jimmy Allister in Code Realize.
Whoa!
Who they also got back. I don't think. Yeah, because they didn't. No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I don't know how to react to that. Yep.
He is also the So this is they did Eyes of Heaven before they dubbed Diamond is Unbreakable. So he is the game version of Kira as well.
Oh, okay. Wow. Fancy.
So there you go. Some fun facts. And apparently he's the Japanese dub for George Clooney.
All right.
You know, all this very normal things.
Oof.
So yeah, anyways, that's the Phantom Blood film is like not seen by many unless you play the game, which I think they don't have an English patch for, but it's a game that's out there. We're talking about the 93-2000 JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stardust Crusaders OVA. Because it's one of the things that we have not watched.
Mm-hmm.
And
we're curious about.
Very curious about it. We watched it in like the chronological order, which makes it so like we watched these stuff from that came out from 2000 to 2002 first, and then you watch the 93 to 94 stuff in the back half of it.
For some reason, they gave Jotaro like Sonic the Hedgehog hair in the 2000s one.
Yeah, that was weird.
He's got like giant Sonic hair. I'm like, what is that?
It's a very weird thing because like obviously, you know, there's a 7-year gap between them doing the first half and the second half and the first half, which is a very weird thing. But they changed directors in that time as well, and also like the writing staff changes as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like the only thing that stays the same is like the production staff. So it's obviously there's going to be a lot of weird differences when you're going from like the quote unquote first half chronologically to the second half, where like characters kind of change here and there and all that sort of stuff. As well, there is one pretty famous connection to these OVAs.
Okay.
One of the writers who did the last 3 episodes of the first half or the second half, the 93 arc, all the like the Dio episodes, is Satoshi Kon, who is like pretty famous because he's done like a lot of well-known films and anime. He did a Perfect Blue, which is like a take on like idol industry and all that sort of stuff. He did Paprika, Millennium Actress, and Tokyo Godfathers. All well-known anime films, but like this is well before he did any of those. So it was like kind of like one of his like bigger first things he had done. But outside of that, like everyone else is like not as known particularly. But let's talk about these OVAs.
Let's do it.
They are something. We were discussing this when we were watching. Like, why wasn't this put on TV? Why wasn't this adapted better? Not necessarily better, but like adapted more in line with like the manga, to where it's not just like a very speedy like run through of this story.
Maybe that's why they made him have sonic hair, is because it's so speedy.
Oh my god!
I'll see myself out now.
It's 13 episodes in total, which of course, if you compare that to the David production version of Stardust Crusaders, which is like almost 50 episodes.
Yeah.
It's a very like that's a huge drop off in terms of like length.
It is quite condensed.
Yes, it's very condensed. There's a lot of things where like characters show up when they don't necessarily show up in the source material and everything. It's just everything is just like we are cranking this into 5th gear and we are just speeding through towards the end.
Cranking it.
We're cranking it.
No, don't say cranking it.
But yeah, we were trying to figure out like why wouldn't this have been like a TV production for the time. And I think like it is interesting because like the OVA route lets you kind of do a little bit more per se with in terms of like if you want to put a lot of more violence in, you can, because you're not restricted to like television. What's the phrase I'm looking for? There's a specific thing.
Not guidelines. That's not what you're
standards and practices.
There you go.
So you're not bound to that or anything. And these OVAs definitely are very violent.
Yeah, no kidding. There's one thing that we have to talk about later that's like is very different and very intense for me, and like was legitimately upsetting.
There's a lot of these are gory OVAs in a way that like JoJo in general is a violent series. Like
it is.
They had to censor it on TV when they put it out in 2012. Like all those episodes on TV were blacked out for certain violent scenes and everything. Of course, like when they brought it over here for America, we got the unedited versions and all that sort of stuff. But I feel like this is even more violent than that was.
I agree
feel like,
with you.
Like obviously, like if you're putting this on like home video immediately, like you're gonna go as far as you possibly can per se. But like that's not you're not gonna like hold yourself back because you're not going on TV. But I feel like that's going to be one of the big things that like TV executives are going to look at and be like, yeah, but this is probably not content we can probably show on TV, because like anime in general is usually a late night type of thing, even in Japan. Like unless it's like a very kids show, like it's not going on past like 10 o'clock or something like that. And I feel like this would have been just like very much pushing it, like, and you would have to like do a lot of censorship to get this on TV at the time. Which is probably not like what you would want for this series at all. And another thing I was thinking of is that like, maybe the manga sales at the time weren't as good to warrant it. But like, if you look at like all-time numbers for JoJo, like it is well over 100 million copies sold. So like that doesn't really make sense. Obviously, I couldn't find like year by year numbers for like the early 90s in terms of like Japanese manga sales per series, so like that's a bit of work. So I wanted to like compare it to something like Sailor Moon, because that is something that had an anime that started around the same time as this, and just see like what would that have been a different, or like a caveat that TV executives would have looked at. But yeah, it is a very interesting thing that they decided, hey, we're gonna put out 6 episodes between late 93 and late 94, put them out on home video, VHS, and Laserdisc.
Ooh.
Which, if you go on eBay, there are 2 results for JoJo Laserdiscs. One is the first volume, which looks like to be in good condition. Take a wild guess how much it is. This is just volume 1 by itself. It has the slipcase and everything. It's like a complete package, pretty much. And I'll caveat that with like, for the Laserdiscs I have, because I have a tiny anime Laserdisc collection, I have paid between like $20 and $50 for a single volume.
I want to say 135.
You are very close.
Really?
$148.65.
Wow, I was close.
There was also a set of the full run, all 6 volumes, full cases and everything, looked to be in pretty alright condition. $440.
Whew.
Which that makes sense. Usually if you're getting like a whole collection, those tend to run up in price pretty quickly. So yeah, that's the only 2 listings that they have on eBay currently right now. And I've seen like these on eBay before, like not necessarily those specific ones, but like various volumes here and there, and they've always been expensive. And that's pretty much usually what you get when you come to like big series like this. Like you're going to be paying a pretty hefty mark. That's just the way that market tends to go. So yeah, the 93 OVA was put out on VHS and Laserdisc around that time. Then they put out the second series in 2000, which they put out on DVD and VHS from 2000 to 2002. This is how long the release of that is, because you are probably aware, some of the listeners might not be aware, OVAs are usually released one at a time.
Right.
And it would be, you would go to the video store and be like, oh, I'm going to get my VHS copy of JoJo Volume 1, and it's just that single episode. And then you wait a few months, and here's Volume 2, and then you wait a few more months, and here's Volume 3, and so on and so forth. It's similar to how, like, anime TV shows are released nowadays, where, like, you'll, like, have the first volume of Love, Live, Sunshine Season 2. It is a single disc with 1 episode on it. And that's just the way they put out their series over there. They don't wait till like the very end and like combine them all together. But that's basically the same thing they do with OVAs as well. So they would have done the same thing with the second series as well. It's 1 episode, and then you wait a few months, you get the next episode, and so on and so forth, rinse and repeat. Eventually, the series came out over here from 2003 to 2005. They put it out in 6 volumes on DVD, and they dubbed it in English.
Yep.
And that's what we watched.
Yay!
It's a long, really roundabout way to talk about that.
Roundabout.
Yeah. Hey.
Hey, JoJo jokes.
They did have to do a recall on it in 2008.
Yes.
Because of the presence of the Quran. It is in the 6th episode, I believe, is what it is. So basically, it was in conjunction, the studio and the managing body behind JoJo, the manga, was like, hey, we're going to halt the OVA, and we're also going to halt manga shipments. We're going to change this, and then we'll re-put it back out. So they changed the episode, and then they changed also specific scenes in the manga as well. And I believe it's like...
The issue being that Dio is reading the Quran.
Correct. This on Wikipedia says, even though the manga did not feature that specific scene from the OVA, Shueisha had Ariki redraw scenes that depicted characters fighting on top of and destroying mosques. So that's the reason they had the manga changed. And then basically they got that all fixed up. They resumed production and selling them, and everyone was A-okay.
I mean, maybe Dio just wanted to do some light reading.
I mean, he was just in that room, bored, shirtless all the time, so he had a huge library, so I guess that's probably what he was doing.
I mean, he's in Egypt, so, like, it wouldn't be completely out of bounds for him to be reading that. But I understand also why they did that.
Totally.
Because you also don't want to, like, associate, like, oh, he's reading this and he's a villain.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, it's a wise decision. in my brain, I'm like, Dio probably would, just because he's that kind of guy. He's just bored and like, this book's here, I'll read it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure he like took this house from somebody and has some sweet stuff in it.
Well, I mean, they do literally call it in one of the OVA episodes. I think it's the later ones. So like, oh, he's in the house.
Yeah, they did say that.
Which I'm going to have to bleep out, so you're going to have to figure out what that means.
Which, like, that's a really fancy one. You could say a brothel. You don't have to bleep that.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
But like, that's a really, really fancy brothel. Like, how many staircases do you need in a brothel?
So many. Oh, I guess another reason why they would not have been able to put this on TV is that there is nudity in this.
Oh yeah, there are boobs, like all kinds of boobs. It's just there.
It's out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Just all over the place.
So we don't have to necessarily go through the entire story because we have done that already. We can kind of like hit the high points and talk about what was changed. But like as a whole, what do you think of this OVA?
I don't hate it.
Like if you were a fan of JoJo in 1993 and this is what came out, would you be satisfied with this? I guess you would be satisfied with the second like half of it, so you wouldn't have the full picture of it yet, but would you be okay with this as an adaptation?
That's really hard to say because like I've seen the like what is it, David production?
The David production,
first.
yeah.
Yeah, and like that one's a really good representation of Stardust. And I'd probably be stoked because I'm like, oh man, I'm a JoJo fan and like I'm getting content and this is rad. I would be kind of bummed that like it's
pretty
inaccurate.
Streamlined.
It's streamlined and it's inaccurate and like it feels very, very rushed. Like that would make me really bummed because there is some really good development that is left out just for the sake of like time. And some good storylines, but I mean, I'd probably be pretty stoked to like at least see it in action.
Yeah, because like around this time you would had this and then like the Super Famicom game, and that was the big JoJo adaptations that would have been out there.
And I will say, having played some of the Super Famicom game, like this is better than that.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
So if those are my two options as a 90s JoJo fan, hypothetically, like I'd be more stoked about this than I would be about the game.
So yeah, let's talk about the dub. Obviously, like we said, released between 03 and 05 over here. So it is around that time where, you know, anime dubbing and even video game dubbing at the time, not that great. You know, there was gems here and there, but for something like this, you're probably not going to get the be-all, end-all stars of stars to show up.
Right. Instead, you get guys who say Polnareff.
There's a lot of weird pronunciation issues in this. Like Polnareff is just pronounced Polnareff. It felt like a lot of people, like a lot of like the direction for this was having them say the character names or stand names as like phonetically as possible.
Yeah. Polnareff.
Polnareff, Hierophant Green.
Hierophant Green. Also, like, Polnareff can't keep his accent.
He doesn't keep his accent past the first episodes he shows up in.
He doesn't even keep it throughout the entire episode that he first shows up in. He keeps it for like maybe 2 scenes, and he's like, all right, now I'm just a regular guy. It's fine. Everything's fine. And then like Avdol's comes in and out sometimes. Like he most of the time keeps his, but sometimes just like regular. Like, oh, okay, I guess.
It very much is. It proves the point of Viz getting out in front of Stardust Crusaders and be like, yeah, we are not going to basically localize and have Polnareff and Avdol and other characters have their country's accents or do anything like that. We're just going to have them speak normally.
It was smart.
Or normally for an English person. Seeing
it like this, I was like, oh, God. Like, for one, Polnareff's, like, French accent to begin with was really bad.
It was very hammy.
It was very hammy and didn't really fit. And also, he's just like in a spot where he's not supposed to be anyway. So I was a little thrown off. But yeah, that accent for one was bad and two did not last.
No.
And like I said, Abdul's was like in and out, but even then, like it kind of came off, like you said, campy. And sometimes it felt kind of just like,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that they didn't go with accents for the new dub, but it led to some really odd things. I still can't get over the Hierophant green type nonsense. Like
Hierophant green.
Like, who says it like that? Nobody says it like that. It's like if you've seen the word once, literally once in your entire life, that's how you might say that word. Maybe. But like, y'all can look at pronunciations. This is not hard. God.
But what if it was?
And like, I'm awful at pronouncing things. I'm really, really bad at it. And I feel awful because like sometimes people will say their names and I'm like, I'm gonna butcher that, but I'm gonna try anyway.
Right.
And one that I've consistently been terrible at is Kekaween. I'm really bad at saying his name.
Mm-hmm.
They're worse at it.
which is not something you would normally expect.
No, like there is no consistent pronunciation of that throughout the entirety of the series. And also like he pulls off like honorifics every once in a while and you're like, where did that come from?
It's like only for the Joestars that he honorifics them.
I think he does to Abdul as well.
Okay, so maybe it's like them and no one else.
Yeah, mainly it's Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
Joseph probably gets the most sans in the entire thing. Jotaro doesn't really, and maybe that's because they're the same age.
Yeah, that would make sense.
And Polnareff just doesn't at all, ever.
It's like, you, Polnareff.
Polnareff. Also, we have to talk about his earrings.
Oh yeah, so because this includes the manga version earrings.
Mm-hmm. He looks like an alien. And when he gets his glasses, he looks like a secret agent, and it looks like he has a mic, and it's amazing. It's wild.
It's very ridiculous.
But yeah, I can't get over the fact that they did not have a consistent pronunciation of his name.
Nope.
They also really emphasized Jotaro's name.
Mm-hmm.
Like they really wanted you to know, like, this is a Japanese name. And it's like, oh, all right, cool.
If you were not aware.
But you didn't give that same treatment to Kakaween at all. Like, but they're going to pronounce Jotaro correctly and like, Jotaro. It's like, oh, okay, you could just say Jotaro. Like, you could just do that, you know. But there's just a lot of really weird, stilted, and awkward voice acting. Like, I put out a tweet when we were watching this. I guess it was last night.
Yeah.
And I know what he was trying to say, but the way that it was kind of like slurred together, like Jotaro at one point was like, "Are you bad enough to be my opponent?" And I'm like, "Bad what?"
That's not what someone would say.
No, that's not the phrase that you would use there. And I just found it so funny that I had to tweet that out. But so if anybody was curious as to why the heck I tweeted out, "Are you bad enough to be my opponent?" Now you know. Because that was just a ridiculous phrase.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of voice acting, we have to talk about the guy near the end.
So there is a very small part near the end,
Mm-hmm.
which lines up with what happens in the manga. There's a senator that's just like in Egypt, and Dio's like, "I'm taking your car."
Yeah, drive.
This dude's like, "Oh no!" Tries to get away, but can't because Dio's Dio.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very minor role.
Yeah.
But is done by someone you would not expect.
Mm-mm.
And he would have done this after he had become pretty well known for another role entirely.
Yep.
A role that he still does to this day.
Correct.
So this little senator man is voiced by Charles Martinet.
Mm-hmm.
The voice of Mario.
And Luigi.
And Luigi and Wario and Waluigi. And like all of them Marios. Mario.
He's in this. And also he says a curse word.
He says a curse.
I don't remember what he says.
I mean, I guess it's the early 2000s, so he must have just done this under the radar of Nintendo. But
Oh, yeah. I don't think he'd be able to pull this off now.
No.
Because, like, holy moly. For some reason, I'm thinking he says but
I think that makes sense.
but we're just like, what? And so the entire time that we're watching this, we're just like, Mario, you can't do that. Mario, don't do that. Oh no, Mario. So that was a very, very funny voice role in this.
Wild.
So wild. God. We did not get oh, that's a baseball.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but also it's not
fast
surprising.
track.
Was there anyone in here, like, did you feel like any of the characters, the English voices fit them at all? Because I feel like the notorious one is Jotaro, who does not, that voice does not fit him at all.
It does not fit him at all. It is a very, especially after hearing Matt Mercer's Jotaro, like, this is bad in comparison. Like, it does not fit him.
I think the Joseph voice is fine.
It's
like,
fine.
It's not as like gravelly as the new dub is, but like as someone who's like supposed to be like, you know, the senior figure in this group, like I think it works pretty all right.
Yeah, I don't hate it. He's blonde though. That's weird.
Yeah, that is weird. And I think I could say the same about like Avdol, Kakyoin, and Polnareff. Like they're fine at best.
I think if their delivery was a little bit better, like the voices themselves aren't bad. Like they fit. I think that probably the closest to being like, all right, I'm okay with that would be Abdul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one that I also would think didn't fit very well is Dio.
Yeah.
He seemed too like manic.
It's very like flamboyant.
Yeah, and like there is a flamboyancy to Dio, but like this guy just legit felt like he was just like, I don't know, what's a drug that makes you feel like super up?
Speed.
I don't do drugs, so I don't
know
know the answer to this, but he's like,
I would kind of feel like this would be the voice you would do for part 1 Dio.
I could see that for part 1 Dio, absolutely. But this part Dio, like Stardust Crusaders Dio, no.
Mm-hmm.
He's a lot more like calculating, and he's like, for lack of a better word, out for blood. I went there. But there's a lot more of a like seriousness to him that didn't exist in part 1 Dio. And I feel like this guy was just like, it was kind of like a cocaine version of Dio.
Right.
He was just like, I'm like, dude, you gotta calm down. It was wild.
And then you got guys like Whole Horse, who's very southern.
Oh, yeah. Whole Horse was really
Who's probably also like one of the more famous voices in this entire series.
Oh, really?
Because he's the dude who's like in Powerpuff Girls as Mojo Jojo and also in Final Fantasy X.
Right, you told me about that. I forgot about it until just now. But yeah, he had a really thick Southern accent in that, and I mean, like, exaggeratedly so.
It's like the same with like Darby.
Yeah, Darby had a Southern accent. I was like, why?
Because they're like, Southern man would be a gambler, right? Do that.
I was born a gambling man. I'm trying to think. There were some lines that Whole Horse said that were just like, hilarious. And I can't think of a single one at the moment, but like he was just like super, super thick.
Mhm.
And like I wish at this point that I could pull off like an exaggerated Southern accent to try and like pull that off, but I don't even think I could do that. And I've had a Southern accent, like a real one in life. I don't know. It was weird, but yeah, Darby. Which the fact that Darby was here, I was like, God, no. Ugh. Darby.
So as a whole, it's the dub is what you would expect from this time period, I think.
It's not great. It's not the worst one I've ever heard, though.
No, it's not terrible. It's not. It's it's not gonna blow you away. It's not gonna like
It's
offend you. It's
serviceable.
just what you would expect.
Yeah, it's serviceable.
Let's break down the story a bit. Like I said, we're not gonna go entirely into it because we have done that before.
We've already gone
Yes.
full on into start. Do you know what episode number that was?
Nope, but I can look it up.
Who's gonna win?
Well, I gotta wait for my website to load up.
Who's gonna win? Who will win in the contest of looking things up?
88.
Dang, it was you.
That was the Stardust Crusaders one.
Yep. All right. So that if you want to hear us break down Stardust Crusaders in its entirety, there
That's
you
the
go.
one to go to. Yeah.
We're not. Jesus. We're not doing
All right,
that.
take two.
We're not doing that this time. Also, I'm apparently just gonna die.
I would say the first two episodes are actually pretty decent in terms of being right there in line with the source material.
Are we talking about the first two episodes of 2000?
In chronological order.
Okay, in chronological.
So
yeah,
that would be the first two 2000 episodes.
I could see that.
Where it's just, it's Joseph coming back to Japan. Jotaro's in the prison cell. They got to break him out and everything. He learns about stance and everything. Then the next episode, you meet Kakyoin, which is a little bit, obviously that fight's a little bit different because like out in the woods instead of in like the nurse's office.
And the nurse is not the one that's like stabbing
Possessed.
people in the eyeball.
Right. Then like Holly falls into her coma and everything. Then they're like, well, we're going to Egypt.
Gotta go find Dio. Although the Polaroid thing in this one was really funny to me. He's like, Holly, can I borrow your camera?
Did you get what I asked for? I could only do this once because I will break this camera.
Which, like, what a weird stand ability. I will never get over that.
Episode 3 is where things really start to diverge because they take a plane to Egypt, but it's like a chartered Speedwagon Foundation plane where in the actual material it is just a regular plane.
Right.
The plane goes down and then nothing really bad happens. Then they find the boat, which that's not how that goes.
No. And I was so surprised that they had the orangutan in this because I was like, oh, they're going to cut him. But they didn't. But also we get Polnareff here. Yeah,
so like the boat stuff is kind of similar to how it actually goes in the source material. But then Polnareff is on this boat for whatever reason, even though he does not show up until a little bit later on. But, he joins up after fighting Abdal, which I believe is how that works in the source material.
Yeah, but not on the boat.
Right, exactly. Then you go and you have to fight, or they have to fight Whole Horse and Jay Guile, which again is taking a few steps over what actually happens.
Super sweetie.
This part, though, is actually, I think, pretty well adapted.
It is pretty well adapted. It feels a little odd because you don't really have as much like backstory on Polnareff yet to understand like he says in this like, oh, this is what happened to my sister, but like without him like having his feelings about it out there, like the whole Jay Guile thing doesn't feel as intense.
And it's also like he joins up last episode, and then like in the early parts of this episode, he's like, all right, I gotta go, bye.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay.
Although they did keep in the fact that he likes clean bathrooms, so that was great.
Abdal gets shot by Whole Horse in this. That's how they end the episode. And then they go into the next episode, which is like Kakyoin and Polnareff trying to find Jay Guile and everything. Again, pretty well adapted in terms of like that part of the story, I would say. And it ends pretty much exactly how you would expect and all that sort of stuff. Whole Horse is able to get away because the lady comes and is like, oh, I love you, Whole Horse. And he's like, I'm running away because I love you, honey. That's the only reason I gotta hit the road. And then they also this jump into the story with Enya
Yeah.
immediately after this.
Yeah.
So they go into like the ghost town and everything, and they have to fight Enya, who they basically combine Enya with what's her face? One of the she's one of the antagonists in um Stardust. I forget her name. I'm looking her up right now.
Like the one that's named after Mariah Carey?
Yes, her.
Yeah.
They basically combine Enya and Mariah together, and that's kind of what happens because Enya has this ability to where she can look like a younger person to fool people and everything, but she still has like her actual ability. So it's a little weird and different how that goes, but basically the entire the story here again is pretty similar. The hotel they get invited to, and then it's Enya trying to murder Polnareff because he killed Jay Guile and everything, and Jotaro's like, something's up here. I'm Jotaro.
How'd you know we were Joestars? Oh my god, we didn't even talk about that in the voice acting.
The auras are very weird because it's very clearly someone voiced Aura, and then they pitched it way down.
Way down. Or it kind of sounds like a seal. And then like the Mudas are even worse.
Mm-hmm. It was something like I had to go look up and like look the Japanese dub up and just see like was the Japanese dub bad or something and they just copy and pasted? It was like no, that is exclusive to the English dub. Yeah.
It was bad. It was really bad.
So the Enya stuff ends with them defeating Enya. This is where Avdol comes back, which again is very early compared to what happens, but they were kind of hand-tied because of the 93 OVA where he's with them on the road to Egypt, essentially, automatically, which is not how that works out.
And it's funny in this one because they're like, oh, Avdol, we were waiting for you. And I'm like, wait, what? And then Jotaro has this whole like, I'm going to pull out a cigarette. Hey, Avdol, can you give me a light?
It's really good.
It's so good. And then there's the whole like, stand users when they smell cigarette smoke, there's a vein in their nose that twitches, and but like the fact that he's just like, hey Avdol, use your stand power
give me a light
my cigarette when I am a 17-year-old who should not be smoking in the first place.
It's a shame 4Kids never got a hold of this, where they could have just turned that into a lollipop.
A lollipop.
So that is the 2000s OVA.
Yes.
It is the road up to Egypt. And then the 93 OVA, 93, 94 OVA is them basically getting to Egypt and then the fight with Dio. Mm-hmm. So you start off with basically the beginning half of the second half of Stardust Crusaders is the anime has it, where they're in the desert, they get a helicopter from the Speedwagon Foundation shows up, they drop off Iggy, and then you have the fight with Endul, which is basically, kind of what happens here as well. Like we said, Avdol's here. He would not have been there initially. So that's a little bit different. Kakyoin gets his eyes knocked out, or scratched out, I should say.
Scratched out, yeah.
And Jotaro and Iggy work together reluctly.
I would say, do they work together?
to help, or to take out Endul.
And also, like, for some reason, they somehow, like, build him a grave that's like an obelisk.
Yeah.
In the middle of the desert. I'm like, when did they have time to do that?
I wonder if that was like Iggy's stand, because he can control sand and everything.
Yeah, but like
that's the only thing I could think of.
It wasn't the color of sand. It was like a red obelisk. I'm like, how did you even do that? He's like, you were an honorable man. If I had met you before Dio did, maybe we could have been on the same side. I'm gonna put this neat grave for you. Also, the hat gets knocked off at one point.
So you get to see Jotaro's hair.
Yeah, and his hair changes colors without the hat for some reason.
It's true. It's just brown hair.
Yeah, it's just brown hair, and then like he puts the hat back on. It's like, all right, now it's black again. It's like, okay.
Like, wait, what?
Yep. All right. It's just like a masking thing. That's like you put it on. All right, I'm black hair Jotaro now, with my prize school jacket, my school uniform jacket.
So that all happens. The in between episode is Darby,
God damn.
where you get to know when to hold him, know when to fold him.
Uh,
Be the gambling. Be the gambling man. So Al got to watch her favorite sport of gambling, of poker. Which I would say, like, I was happy this episode was adapted because I love the idea of just big Jotaro being like, I'm just not gonna look at my cards and out bluff you until you just literally die of being so nervous.
It's hilarious. I will admit that, and like seeing how he pulls it off every time, I'm just like Jotaro, and he's like, man, if I had known that was my hand, I wouldn't have done this. It's like, you idiot. And he smokes again in this one.
He smokes. He has like a drink, and Darby's like, "Where do you keep getting this?"
That was really funny. He's like, "All right, I got a cigarette," and then he's got like a little like fruity drink, and he's like, "Is Star Platinum getting these for him? How is he doing this?"
Like, I would have also liked to seen the Darby brothers, so we could get, oh, that's a baseball. But
that's a baseball.
I'm pretty okay with this being like the in between episode between Indul and Dio. Also, we got to watch like the actual Jotaro strategy in work.
Yeah, so I didn't know that somebody had actually done that before, and then you showed it to me. I was like, whoa.
For some people, like, this is not going to be old hat, but like there is a John Boy's documentary about poker in general, like around like the rise of just poker from like the mid 2000s onward, where it got like on TV and everything and all that sort of stuff. And there was a gentleman who basically was in a tournament, and he had to win to advance onwards. And the only way to do that is if he won. So he came up with a strategy of just like, not going to look at my cards. I'm going to bet all in every single time. And eventually this might work. And it totally worked. And he won.
It worked like almost every time.
And anytime anyone challenged him, he would just somehow win without like, he would go all in, and then this person was like, oh, I have a great hand. I can beat him. And then like it would happen again and again and again. He would just like pick up his cards after like they all both go on. And he's like, oh, that's not a good hand. And then somehow he still wins.
Yeah, it was wild to watch that. It was like, that is legit what Jotaro did.
It's amazing.
So that was pretty funny. I was confused a little bit how they did like Darby's cheek lines.
Mm-hmm.
Like they actually animated these like, and I think they did a little bit of that in the other one.
Yes.
But it seemed to be very, very prominent in this version. It looked very odd and out of place. But that's just me. Also, Iggy's basically just gone this whole episode.
He's like, he shows up at one point in that episode just on the ground, and I'm like, where did you get here?
Well, he's supposed to be doing Iggy things in Egypt, in Cairo, but
Yeah.
I will say that Iggy looks like
A dog.
He looks the same throughout the entire few episodes, so that's a thing.
Yeah, Iggy doesn't. We don't get Iggy shenanigans really, because he doesn't have to go fight Pet Shop Boys or anything like that.
It's upsetting. Although there's something way more upsetting with Iggy.
Yes. So after that, we get the Dio arc, which is the last half of the 93 OVA.
Mm-hmm.
Which, of course, you're going to spend most of the time doing the fight with Dio.
As you should, yeah.
Yes.
Dio has a mullet.
Yes. The first episode is they find Dio's lair, and they go in. You know, they find the coffin and everything, and then, oh my god, Daffodil's in the coffin! Ooh, what a parlor trick!
Okay, but hold on. Before that, there's a part where they're up there, and then Jotaro's basically like, oh, I'm gonna, like, opens, like, I forget how he worded it, but he just, like, punches a hole in the freaking wall.
Gonna bring some light in.
There you go. And it's just like, what?
It's good.
It's so funny. He just,
really
like,
good.
Punched a giant hole in the wall. And I'm like, all right, you bring light in, buddy. That was funny. But yeah, Abdul's in the coffin and like bloody, and he's like, I know the secret to the stand. And
then he gets obliterated by Vanilla Ice, who is called Iced in this OVA. I believe, like, probably in the Japanese version, he's Vanilla Ice. Iced was the only version that they used that name for was this OVA, and I believe the Capcom game.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah,
Um,
the Capcom JoJo game. They call him Iced in that.
One of the best things about this scene is that, like, it's a really upsetting thing that Abdul's gone. Like, you see his arm go flying
Mhm.
off. But then, like, afterwards, like, Vanilla Ice just, like, pops his head up out of the hole, like, hey. It's
He
like
does that like 3 or 4 more times.
He
See, like
does!
him popping out of a hole, like just looking up, like, "Hey, what's up?" Or him popping out of his stand and just being like, "Hey, what's up?"
It's like a whack-a-mole type thing, but with
Really
Vanilla
goofy.
Ice. It's really goofy, and it's not supposed to be goofy because, like,
This
terrible
is a
things
very
are
serious
happening.
moment. Yeah.
He's like, hey,
Hey, what's up?
what up? I'm here.
What's going on, guys?
Did I do something? Did I miss? Everything
Did my
okay?
head fall off again?
Well, his head does fall off at one point.
Yeah.
I mean, he cuts it off.
Yeah.
But,
And then Dio's like, plop, pops it back on,
it'd be a waste for you to be dead. Like, here's some of my blood.
and then go die in a little bit.
Yeah, let's just connect your head back on here. We'll screw it like a light bulb. He didn't do it that way, but
I mean, basically.
he basically did that. He's
Uh,
like, yeah, he's so dedicated to me.
So yeah, that happens. We get the split up where Jotaro, Joseph, and Kakyoin are going after Dio. Polnareff and Iggy have to fight
I don't think
Vanilla
Kakyoin's
Ice.
there yet.
Right.
So
He shows up like later on.
it's just Jotaro and Joseph.
Mhm. I think Kakyoin comes in to save Joseph.
Yeah,
But regardless, they split off.
they split off.
Polnareff and Iggy have to fight Vanilla Ice, which is mostly Polnareff at this point.
Mhm.
Iggy comes in for a save and then gets chopped in half.
Chopped in half, like
Which this is very much different from the manga, because in the manga he is already beat up from his fight with the pet shop.
Mhm.
So that's why he's like in rough shape there. And
well, he's in rough shape, and then like Vanilla Ice just like kicks the out of him repeatedly, and like that's already violent enough that he gets mad and just like beats the out of him, and that like he has internal bleeding, and that's why he's like going to die.
he also doesn't have half of his body.
No, I'm saying like in the old version. But
Right,
in this version, he like loses the back half of his body and then gets punted across the room.
Mm-hmm.
And like Polnareff goes and like picks up the half of the body. And I'm just like, oh my God.
Like we said, this is a way more violent adaptation.
I
was
was
very gory.
legitimately very upset by this. And like I told you when we were watching, I'm like, this is very upsetting for me.
Mhm.
That was unexpected. It was kind of like a Zeppeli throwback sort of.
Yeah.
But
Still, like,
I think one of the things that makes this really hard is that Iggy is not voiced in this one.
mhm.
So we don't have a lot of his internal thoughts. So to me, the way that this comes across is that Iggy is just kind of like reluctantly there, and that he's not like as aware of what's going on. So for him to just go in and then get cut in half as this dog that like we don't get any kind of thought process on is like really, really heartbreaking.
And he makes like dog noises, so it's way more of like, this is just a dog than this is a dog with a stand who has human thoughts.
Right. It makes it a lot harder. And like, what a brutal way to go.
There's a lot of just brutal scenes in these last few episodes in general.
Yeah.
Like, you see people just get like decapitated and body parts thrown out. There was a very violent scene where just like you saw someone's innards, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah. There's a scene later on with like Dio on the subway where he just like beheads somebody, and I think he did something else too, but essentially like a lot of people lost their body parts, and it was very violent.
Yeah.
So that was something that I was like, ooh, I don't love that. I feel like the other version was very violent, but not as
it's
like,
not to this extent.
So
right.
Like you didn't have Polnareff picking up half of a dog's body and looking at it, and like you seeing the like missing part of him.
Like, I feel like they're both violent, but this one goes more for shock value violence.
Yes.
Compared to the other one.
Yeah. It was very upsetting. And it felt less like impactful in this one.
Yeah, I
Like
mean that would make sense because like Iggy's barely here.
right, and like Iggy in the other one is because like the whole thing is that Iggy and Polnareff have kind of been like at each other's throats the whole time, and like you get a little bit at the first episode, but then you don't
But
really get
barely,
much.
yeah. It's definitely the difference between having 6 episodes to adapt the last half of JoJo or of Stardust Crusaders and having like 25 episodes.
Right, and also like you don't get the like connection of like without Iggy and his thought process, you don't see him making the whole connection of like I have to sacrifice myself and use the last of my power to save Polnareff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it just kind of comes across as like I'm a dog, I'm gonna do dog things. Oh God, I'm dead.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, shocking, but it doesn't have the same like emotional impact character wise. It just made me very upset.
But I think that's why it's more shock value than the other one, where it can still have the same level of violence to it, but there's more impact to it.
Right. Like it was still very upsetting to see Vanilla Ice just like repeatedly kick Iggy until he's basically
Mm-hmm.
dead. Like that was very, very upsetting. And then like Iggy's like, all right, I have to do this. I have to do this. I have to save him and sacrifices himself. And like that was heartbreaking and it's very emotional, but it was like a character arc that made sense.
In a weird way, it's like the difference between this is like the OVA is very unearned
Mm-hmm.
emotional violence,
Yes.
whereas the anime series is this is a weird thing to say, it's earned emotional violence.
And it felt a lot like that with Abdul as well. Like,
Because it's like, well, he's dead. That's it. Later.
yeah. I'm like, okay, like, all right, yeah, Polnareff is like really mad now, but like in the most recent version of it, like you feel a lot more of Polnareff's feelings on it. You get his emotion. You've seen them like interact a lot and him how he was grieving
Mm-hmm.
and how he grew from his relationship and friendship with Abdul. And so it's just kind of like, oh, he's gone. Goodbye. Like, oh, okay. And the same with Iggy. Also, Polnareff is just missing a toe now.
Yep. But he's
Whoops.
able to beat Vanilla Ice.
Yeah,
He does the thing.
cuts his head off.
He does. The penultimate episode is all about Kakyoin trying to beat Dio and Kakyoin getting messed up. This is where Charles Martinet shows up and goes on a rampage through
He
Egypt.
drives through a bunch of people.
Cars blow up at the slightest hit into a wall.
Mm-hmm.
It's not how cars work.
It's just like blood like trailing down the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Very yikes.
But they lead Dio to the rooftops where Kakyoin tries to trap him with Hierophant Green. Dio basically shows off the world. Sorry, Hierophant Green. Dio shows off the world basically for the first time, and Kakyoin gets to learn the secrets of the stand. He has to show Joseph and everything, so he blows up the clock tower, and Joseph's like, "Clock tower? Why would he do this? Kakyoin is very diligent. He wouldn't just randomly shoot off an attack for no reason. Time. Stopping time."
It's a stretch in every version.
Yeah, but I feel like they have to really speed through it here because they have very limited time.
Yeah. Also we have the whole fact that like Joseph can apparently fly now.
He's just flying along.
He's just flying through Cairo, and I'm like, buddy, like every once in a while you'll get like bloop. Hermit Purple is just like every once in a while pulling out, but for the most part he's just flying. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, all right, cool, I guess Joseph can fly now. Casually.
That's how that works. And then the final episode is Jotaro versus Dio. It is, it's the fight how you would expect it to go.
Except for they don't explain the whole knife thing at all.
Probably a little bit more violent compared to the other version, but
yeah,
it is Jotaro versus Dio. It is what you would. This is the culmination of what you've been waiting for, and it's pretty all right.
Are you badass enough to be?
Are you badass enough?
God. The heart scene was also pretty silly.
Mm-hmm. We do not get old Joseph trying
Ah.
to goof on Jotaro because like they just like show up in a plane after the fight. They're in a
That
plane for this reason, for whatever reason, this version. But yeah,
it was so
it's just like,
upsetting.
oh, we're fine.
It's like a monologue type thing
Mm-hmm.
instead, and it's so upsetting because that was such a good Joseph moment.
Mm-hmm.
And we do get the whole thing with like Dio and Jotaro on the bridge, and he's like, you made one mistake, you pissed me off.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, all right, yeah. Also, like at one point, there's just a boat thrown at Jotaro.
Yeah, a boat gets thrown at him. It's really funny.
Like, oh my god. Like I said, they don't explain how he survives the knives at all. Um, so that's just there,
Yeah.
and he just has knives sticking out of him at one point.
He got the point.
he
So yeah, then we end on the airport scene where the boys hug it out and everything, and we see Jotaro and Joseph on a plane back to Japan. Joseph puts in a tape in his Walkman to listen to music. We do not get the end scene of Jotaro looking at a picture of Aqua as the camera pans out of the plane.
He does not show his appreciation of Love Live Sunshine.
He does not, unfortunately. And that's how it ends. There's a weird song at the end, and that's it.
That song was weird.
Mm-hmm.
Holly's okay.
Yeah, Holly's okay.
Which we were talking about how cool it would have been to have like a side story where like Holly actually did get a stand.
Mm-hmm. Like I feel like that should be a thing that Araki should do.
Yeah, like even if it's just like a side story of like what would Stardust Crusaders have been like if Holly had a stand.
It's like Jotaro's the one that's sick, and it's Holly and Joseph going after Dio.
Like that would be so interesting.
That'd be really fun.
But yeah, I can't get over that song. Like the entire time that we were watching the credits, I'm like, what is this? Joseph, what are you listening to on your Walkman? Trash. That's what it is. I do like that they kept the Walkman in though.
It's good.
Also there was just like a Coke and 7-Up ad.
Yeah, there was just like random like real live advertisements, like 7-Up, Coke, like a Kodak billboard, just hanging out in Cairo. Yeah, interesting. I mean, it's an OVA; you can get away with that.
Oh yeah, it's just I wasn't expecting it because we were just like, all right. And I keep thinking of the Pepsi sign, but 7-Up and Coke in this one.
Let's talk about some manga to OVA differences real quick. Some of them that we probably haven't fully discussed. So, like we said, the story is largely omitted. Yep, we know that. We talked about
omitted.
We talked about Enya and her way that she can become a lady, or younger lady, I should say. In the manga, after Jotaro is freed from jail, he, Joseph, Avdol, and Holly discuss Dio's whereabouts at a cafe, and the OVA discussed Dio at Holly's house. We talked about the Jotaro Kakyoin fight in the nurse's office.
Mm-hmm.
The group doesn't meet Polnareff in Hong Kong like in the manga. Instead, they meet him inside of Strength. In addition, Polnareff was not controlled by one of Dio's flesh blood parasites. He was just a jerk, I guess.
He was just a jerk. A jerk with a French accent that lasted 2 minutes.
In the manga, Jotaro defeats Forever, which is the monkey, the orangutan, by pummeling him with Star Platinum. In the OVA, Forever is instead sliced in half by Polnareff's Silver Chariot. The group's visit to Singapore is completely removed. Nena appears as an ordinary person. That's the lady who's in love with Whole Horse.
Right. We did not get the cherry moment.
We talked about Avdol coming back early. Whole Horse does not reappear after being hurt by Enya. He just disappears. He's gone.
Yeah, that's true.
Iggy keeps a consistent appearance at the OVA, like you mentioned.
He keeps a consistent appearance.
Darby provides his full name. In the manga, this is provided by his brother.
Okay.
After Darby is defeated, he gives away the location of Dio's mansion, but goes completely insane before he can reveal the secret of Dio's stand. In the manga, he goes insane before he can reveal either piece of information.
Mm-hmm.
Kakyoin does not rejoin the group before they enter Dio's mansion, instead arriving just in time to save Joseph from Dio. Nukasaku, the one Dio underling who like shows up right before they find the coffin.
Oh, the idiot guy?
Yeah, he is omitted from the story, causing the scene where Dio's coffin is open to be significantly different. The protagonists happen upon it on their own, only to find Abdul inside, and then he gets murdered.
Yeah, immediately.
Much of the battle with Vanilla Ice is cut in the OVA. Iggy dies by having his lower body erased by cream, and then kicked and beaten by ice rather than simply dying of blood loss from a beating, like we talked about. Vanilla Ice's death has changed as well. Rather than exposing him to the sun, Polnareff kills Ice by stabbing him repeatedly and slicing his head in two.
Mm-hmm.
The fight between Jotaro and Dio has changed drastically. In the manga, Dio figures out Jotaro can move and stop time when he sees his finger twitching. In the OVA, he finds out when Jotaro survives being punched by the world and stop time. Their battle also demonstrates extra scenes involving pure physical action as the two wreak havoc on the city of Cairo, with a number of civilian casualties on Dio's part.
Okay, that sentence is amazing. They wreak havoc on Cairo with number of casualties on Dio's part.
It's true. Dio drops an oil tanker on Jotaro instead of a steamroller. It's unfortunate. Jumping off when it explodes. Joseph does not pretend to be Dio and revives in the OVA, nor does Jotaro question him with questions about movies or music, like who's Weird Al Yankovic.
Mm-hmm.
In the manga, Jotaro and Joseph place Dio's body out in the sunlight of the Sahara Desert, destroying his body completely. In the OVA, his body is deposited inside of a bag out of the back of a Speedwagon Foundation plane in the ocean. It's just like, whoop. Hopefully this opens up. Finally, Joseph puts on a Gypsy Kings tape in the OVA, while in the manga, he puts on Get Back by the Beatles.
Is that what that song was?
I guess so.
Ugh.
Also, you're not going to get the Beatles to license out for JoJo, that's for sure.
No, you're not. Man. This was wild.
Yeah. It's a weird adaptation, but and especially because for 20 years this was the JoJo adaptation.
Yeah.
Outside of video games and whatnot. So it's very weird. Like we said, it's a very, very fast, streamlined version of Stardust Crusaders. But I think if you've watched the anime and you're you want to see how a different team would tackle this content, I think it's an interesting watch in and of itself. And it's 13 episodes. It's not long.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are movie versions on YouTube that you can find. They're 3 hours each.
Yeah.
So it's 6 hours of content. That's not a lot.
No, I mean we split it up in
hour and a half chunks. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's totally doable. But yeah, it's very weird and interesting.
That's a good way to put it.
Mm-hmm. Maybe one day we'll find they'll put out an English patch of the Phantom Blood game, and we'll play that, and that'll be the other thing we have not done.
Just continue to work our way through all the JoJo mediums.
Yeah. Why not?
I mean, I'm about it.
So yeah, that's JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, the OVA from 1993 and 2000. A very interesting look at how JoJo could have been if they didn't make that TV series in 2012.
I definitely prefer the 20 one.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's gonna wrap this episode up.
Polnareff.
Hierophant Green.
All right, little lady.
I'm gonna run away because I love you, little lady. A little later, a little later.
Oh my god. Also, the fact that he just warped onto a motorcycle. It was so funny.
Oh, horse.
Oh, horse. What a wild human being he is.
So yeah, if you'd like more from us, go to seasonalcheckup.com or sec.cool, where you can find past episodes of this podcast and other podcasts like Seasonal Checkup and Jared and Al Watch. You can find columns and reviews on the site as well, including something new. Hopefully. Hopefully this should be up by the... Actually, I'm hoping this will be up Sunday. Okay. But of course, we have holidays in between, so that could put a hamper on things. But it's time... This, this coincides a little bit with what we're doing next week, which we'll talk about here in a few. But what's the best animes of the past decade?
I don't know.
Well, you'll find out this Sunday. I feel like, a few of them are going to be fairly obvious if you have ever listened to anything that we have done. But there could be some surprises here and there on that list. It's going to be a list that's like not full of the popular stuff. So it's going to be like people will look at us and be like, "What?" But like I said,
That's
if you know if you know us, it's going to be very on brand.
Yeah.
So yeah, look forward to that. Hopefully Sunday. I'll hopefully have all that written out. If you'd like more from Anne Ladyem, go to AnneLadyem.com. She's got columns and reviews.
Yay.
You can support us on Patreon or on Twitter. Twitter.com/Anime Checkup is where we do Twitter and do dumb stuff there. And you can support us on Patreon. You could buy us a slice of pizza at patreon.com/SACOVA.
I love pizza.
Be like, wow, these people talked about the JoJo OVA. We should get them a slice of pizza.
Pizza. The za.
Pizza.
Cool.
Next week, we got a big episode lined up for you next week. As we begin our December of hey, we know what we're doing.
Yay!
We are going to determine once and for all the best video games of the past decade.
Oh, this is gonna be tough.
It will be. Who will make the list? What will be the best?
Find out. You'll
have to, come on over. Come on over
here, little lady.
Come on over here, little lady. And check us out next week as we bring to you the best video games of the last decade. And, probably like my anime list, it's going to be a lot of people being like, huh?
Yeah, it's going to be a little confusing for people, but that's fine.
But it's if you're listening to us, you know what you're getting yourself into.
You definitely know what you're getting yourself into if you're listening.
You're getting into our brand of shenanigans, so
what a good brand.
Look forward to some just weird stuff, and we have to find lists of games and everything. We have to study in between now and next week. But we're going to have some games to talk about next week.
Until then, you should be bad enough to be my opponent.